Yeah, yeah, and I also want to start off by I want to preface by saying I guess I'll introduce myself and then just go through it. And I was thinking maybe what I might do is like I can just go up from the bottom of your LinkedIn at the as a career perspective and then see where the conversation takes us.
That works. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, so first to introduce myself, my name's Jim Bradlingart. And people know me online as username as Jim. I've been like mostly a computer science. I worked a lot of like technical support roles, and a big gamer, obviously. And like I did tech support for Ubisoft briefly myself in house,
All right.
Rockstar Games. And then most people know me online. I worked at a job called Umbral, where my moniker was username as Jim, helping with like these things called lightning nodes, which are like they're being shipped everywhere and it's like tech and cash app. But I'm like a big into computer science. Maybe at the end of the discussion we can talk a little bit about that more, and I'll shut up too much about myself because there's something I want to pick your brain on what you're doing now, and also maybe talk with you about what you think about. I don't know if you've seen these prompts people are making games and like.
I have. I have. Yes.
Yeah, so first off, I'll start with the first question and shut up. Um, and I wanted to say thank you for your service. I was just going up from the LinkedIn. I see like National Guard. Maybe we can start there and how you got into gaming. And also, I also want to preface by saying if we start talking a bit much about like the future soldier and war, I want to preface by saying I don't mean to glorify war by any means, and I'm definitely a proponent of the fact that games are stress relievers and great ways to like for arts and engineering. So with that said, thank you for your service. Do you want to talk a bit about like the beginnings of your career and like the Rainbow Six stuff and how you got into that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, my gaming career, as I look back on it, actually started long before I was in the games industry and before I even joined the military. I started as a gamer in my very young days. My father bought an Apple II or no, Apple II C, one of the apples, and I started gaming on it. And eventually, my mom had gotten an Atari and then a SNES. So I played a lot of the early.
Apple too. Like it was just that was just the that was just with the it's the keyboard and you just
Yeah, it was yeah, standalone box with a separate monitor, and it was like the second generation Apple unit.
you played a game.
Uh,
You have any like fond memories?
yeah, yes. The two games I remember specifically were F-15 Strike Eagle, which was basically like an F-15 simulator, like a Ace Combat kind of game, but back with Apple II graphics. And then a game called Dreadnoughts, which was like a battleship simulator, kind of a turn-based, semi-real-time battleship simulator where you try to take the Bismarck against the British Navy. And it was kind of Souls-like because
That's awesome.
yeah, you were pretty destined to lose. Like that was your challenge. Like take the Bismarck out and beat the entire British Navy, and you lost every single time. Uh, yeah.
Younger. I did.
Wow. Yeah. So eventually, I grew up in Alaska, and I joined the military. I actually joined active duty in the Marine Corps, where I served as military police mainly in Southern California. After I got off active duty, I continued on in the National Guard. I was in the Air Guard and then the Army Guard. And when I got back from my military service, my friends were older, and we were LAN gaming a lot, and we played StarCraft and Empire Earth and Age of Empires, Quake, and we got pretty hard into Rainbow Six. Started downloading mods for it, and when the new version Rogue Spear came out, there was some mods that we had used for the previous versions that weren't available for the new one, and so I made them, and then I started uploading them to the internet, and people started downloading them and started playing them, and I finagled that into a job at Red Storm working on Ghost Recon with a little bit of Rainbow in there.
Too about that because that part is fascinating and I think really big about like first of all the amount of like you started your career, you served your country, and then you did something fascinating which I find echoed in a lot of people who are have curious minds and like they go into this engineering world too. uh, I also have a bit of military background. I lived on Air Force bases. That's where was exposed to your work, I guess, for the first time. Me and my brother would play Raven Shield. Uh,
Okay.
and then he went off and did his own thing and serving his country. And then you know, like we would be in battlefield lands. You know, we would be playing, and we would play Ghost Recon Raven Shield, believe it or not. So I was just trying to look up the chronological events here. So Rogue Spear was that big one where you got into this world of computer science and blend of art engineering. Can you describe where you guys like I had a hand-me-down HP. Do you remember some of the tools you worked with? Like I remember back in the day, it was like, you know, everyone was on TeamSpeak, Mumble. Like how did you
Yeah.
like, and then you just started making Rogue Spear, and then how did you, and then what was that jump? Can you describe that maybe in like a few sentences? I don't
Yeah. So
pry too much into your life, but I think it's interesting.
yeah, the neat thing was Rogue Spear really was one of the first games that really did, at least for me, support modding in that they had you see it a lot now where a game will fundamentally have their file structure set up for modding, i.e. the core game engine will pull down from a set of data files, um, and basically whatever whatever data gets put into those files, the core game engine pulls that in, which is a lot different structure from a game that's structured to just only run itself. And usually developers set that up so that if they're going to do DLC or so they can do expansions in the future, but it has that side benefit of allowing modders to get into that file structure, learn that file structure, and then set up their own things. I mean, I still use that structure today. I make mods for a game called Project Zomboid right now, and they have it set up the same way. Uh, Um, yeah, and so I was using, gosh, I don't even remember what kind of PC it was. It was um, whatever would have been used in the late 90s.
Back then, everyone was like, the cases were all like the
This was
HP,
pre that. This was usually,
like
yeah, this was like,
cases. But yeah, I
yeah, this custom cases that we would buy from Fry's Hardware because we had to move these things around every Friday night. We were picking them up and hauling our big 19-inch CRT monitors around, and so we had handles in our cases, and we were usually had things. Half the time, everything was taken apart with like stuff hanging out of the sides of it because we were constantly swapping out graphics cards or memory, constantly upgrading. You're constantly upgrading your hardware. It was an ongoing thing.
sometimes as computer gamers we that era of like LAN parties and the modding community used to be a little more celebrated. Like I entered the world of like the Morrowind construction set battle, like there were battlefield lands, and it seemed a little more celebrated. Like the modding community is still alive. There's still, don't get me wrong, like people are modding like textures onto like Battlefront, and then like, you know, there's still Skyrim mods and stuff, but it just felt like in more of the games as a service, that era of like that fresh modding community where like creativity was like flowing.
Yeah, I think it's evolved. I mean, I think that was much more, if you look at modding in the late 90s when I was doing it, I think it's more akin to maybe more like the maker community today, like this
Oh,
3D printing community where you were really pushing the boundaries. Where I think, from like a technical perspective, you're trying to work around. Whereas today, I think you have a lot of that outlet in games like Fortnite or Roblox or Minecraft, where the games themselves. I mean, if you look at the Fortnite creator community, it's huge, but that's more around working with the tools that are built by the developer specifically to create those kinds of experiences. And it's much more of an integrated kind of influencer community or content creator community, as opposed to, back then it was a little more of like, I figured out how to make this thing and I'm going to upload it to File Planet, and people are going to download it and break it and then complain about it. Which I'm sure I know it exists like in the Zomboid modding community. I've seen it in the Fallout modding community. Those things are still existed, but I think there's a big outlet in communities like, again, Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, where people get a lot of creative extension in building stuff within those existing systems that maybe those didn't exist in the 90s, where we had to go out and bust open games and try to make our own.
100% agree with you. I think most like hardcore PC gamers know like that modding community is like the lifeblood of like most PC gaming of the world, you know? And I think you're totally right about there. It just like I saw something I didn't really think about much is like these online platforms with their user generated content is kind of like they're still spurring that forward, that baton forward. And let me talk briefly and then we can jump ahead a bit in interest of time. I guess I wanted to discuss quickly in that regard, and then I'll switch maybe to Ghost Recon and then more modern like developments. Um, do you have this thought that I have, like with Ghost Recon Raven Shield? You mentioned like you got really into it on Rogue Spear. That the single player campaigns, like during when the Xbox 360 released, I think those were some golden years of development. Like we had flagship games like Oblivion, um, and then Gears of War, like Future Soldier, like those, and Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2 also. Those single player campaigns were amazingly immersive, and I think the newer generation who got very hooked. Don't get me wrong, I love the battle royale genre. Doesn't seem as much in depth, even though it employs a lot of people and it's like a battle royale. However, I think gaming needs to continue to create these great immersive, in-depth worlds,
Mhm.
and to keep the gaming, community like healthy, alive, like creative. Do you like, for instance, I might edit. I want to make this a good question. If anything you want me to edit like out or in the future too, let me know on this. I can always edit. But I wanted to like in Rainbow Six Raven Shield, you could like your campaign you go in. It's a multinational team. They're working together. They can like you go Zulu, go, 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 and then like Future Soldier, you're fixing problems. It's like that first one where it's like you have to. I think the first mission I played it again recently. You stop like a drug lord guy before he tells us. It was like a really cool story, but the newer Ghost Recons and like I worked at Rainbow Six. I don't currently work at Ubisoft. I did support for them, but it was like there was no single player campaign. What do you think about that direction as far as like every like Marvel Rivals came out, everyone's playing that, but it's kind of like a you have my drift on it. It feels like it's not quite in depth of a world. Or do you have any comments on like how to keep gaming creative, alive, new experiences fresh, like fresh, cool, in-depth world? Do you have that feeling I do, or do you have any
Yeah,
thoughts on that? I'm sure maybe
I
you
think.
have discussions like that in like conference rooms or anything like that.
Oh yeah, I've had lots of discussions about that. Lots of thoughts. Probably
Anything
more time than we have. But I think part of the driver of that kind of dissolution of overall the general single player experience when it comes to specifically to kind of big shooters, right? When we think about our Gears of War, our Ghost Recons, even our Halos these days, is that these days games are so big and so expensive and require so much investment when it comes to building out the content in these spaces that it does it is driven by business, right? It is driven by someone looking at it and going, say for example, Ghost Recon, right? The kind of Ubisoft open world model that we've seen adopted, over the few years, kind of outgrowing from Assassin's Creed, is there is a business case for, well, I can create a single player campaign and I can create a multiplayer game utilizing those assets, a la, Halo, for example, does that, or traditionally had done that. Or I can create one integrated world, like say a Ghost Recon Wildlands, where it's just the world, the game exists, Halo Infinite, and I can play it single player, I can play it co-op, I can set multiplayer in there, I can have all these different monetization things, I can have microtransactions, I can have this big expansive thing, and it's all just one great. And on paper, that sounds amazing, right? On paper, that sounds really good. It's one integrated experience. I can just go play it. I can play it however I want. Look at Fallout New Vegas, right? Or I'm sorry, I misspoke. Fallout 76, right? It's this one big integrated, experience. The challenge with that is you lose some of that focus, right? cinematic storytelling that you might get from something like, the older Rainbow Sixes, or from even, Call of Duties, where you would go through these, multiple cinematic experiences. And then when you jumped into multiplayer, it was kind of a different focused multiplayer experience. And that applied to tactical shooters, that applied to sci-fi shooters, more casual shooters. And so that model has shifted over time. And I think we've lost some of that essence of, you're not going to have a, Gears of War Dom, his teammates dying moment, or Halo Reach, Carter sacrificing himself moment in, Ghost Recon Wildlands. You'll have a lot of water cooler moments, right? You'll have a lot of cool things that happen, but you won't have that crafted cinematic storytelling experience with built around whatever gameplay loop you have. And I think we've kind of gone away from that. I think there's an appetite for it, but then there's also the economic challenges of who wants, we've seen today, Switch 2 gets announced and everybody's mad about the game costs $80, or Marathon gets announced and people are mad about how much it costs, versus this and that and this and that. And, are you willing to pay $120 for a fully, fleshed out game? Because, we're still paying the same amount for games that we were paying 20 years ago. And inflation has changed.
Yeah, 100%. I think price points are like a big, like they're a big deal. There's lots of back and forth. Just like selling a hardware product, in my experience, and very near in the relative recently, it's like it's a huge deal, And that was a tough question, but I really appreciate you answering that. It really brought to light, some of what I think a lot of gaming journalism a little sensationalistic, but then they don't look past the nuance of like what things are sometimes. So
Yeah.
last question, I might join together some of that document I sent you on the Ghost Recon question, and then jump into modern
Mhm.
developments. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess like with Ghost Recon and Halo Reach, I'm so curious on like I guess we touched a little bit on like I guess the workstations you use are kind of self-explanatory, just like a Windows machine running like probably I'm seeing like Maya, like other like you have a huge team of people doing, but like at the point where you need to when you consult people, I'm fascinated to your knowledge that like I'm a military brat, I tried to actually call the special forces fort near me to see. I was like, can you tell me anything like about like what's going on? Like I hear stories of like Navy SEALs with like they have like things they can put on their ears to talk to people. I'm like fascinated what the technology is now. Like for instance, I'll touch on two questions, like an easy one and then like an open-ended one. The easy one is, what do you think about the camera gun in Ghost Recon? Because have you remember that thing? Like,
I do. I that was my baby. I designed that.
but like I looked it up and it doesn't seem too practical. I guess like because you on all the movies, people are like, when you watch all these movies, they're all rounding corners like this. But it seems practical. But like, and then like those, I would think those technologies exist. So like, and then the open-ended question is in Halo Reach or Ghost Recon, did you have any like like how does that work when you like liaison with people and then they
Mhm.
and then inform on the product? Because I've seen like people do like weapons, like how it
Yep.
like anything cool you want to share on that regard. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's a
So
long open-ended question, but anything cool you want to share?
no, it's good. On specifically the camera gun, the
Yeah.
XM29, in Ghost Recon. So how that came about was really working, and it's actually kind of crosses into your second question. It was consulting a lot with the Natick Soldier Center, which were the folks that were pushing at the time, was called the Future Warrior Program. They had an earlier, I think the earlier version was like the
Just
Advanced Warfighter or Integrated Warfare.
for a while. I asked that. What inspired this question is when I was on the BX, the Air Force Base Exchange. I think I would see like part of that program. They had the magazines with like
Yeah,
putting the skeletal things on the soldiers, and it seems like in 2025 we would be able to protect people and keep them safe. So that's what. Just to let you know, this is what inspired the it. But like you touched on, what was the name of that you said again?
well, it was Natick Soldier Center they're like a group that's kind of associated with DARPA that does a lot of their technology. A Natick, Natick, I believe. Um, yeah, it's a defense
Oh, I thought
contracting.
you said naval
Yeah.
for a moment. Okay, I'll let you continue.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I'll put
Yeah, so
in B-roll.
yeah, so they were doing a lot of research and into integrating camera systems with heads up displays and such like that. And so they were working on the XM-29, which was an integrated grenade launcher rifle system with a camera, a built-in camera system that would interface with drones and computer systems. And so we explored different gameplay elements with that. And the really how it came about was the limitations of the Xbox controller and how we could command a squad and do a lot of this high tech stuff that we wanted to play with, like ranged grenades and all these different things. A lot of those, there was too many controls onto the controller. So we actually separated off. If you went back and played like Ghost Recon 2, a lot of the high tech camera droney type stuff would separate off into its own mode so we could use the duplicate controls from squad command into these kind of high tech things. Um, and and so that's how that kind of evolved into the game, was basically looking at those technologies. How can that translate into gameplay? To because that's what we were really embracing, was trying to make you feel like you were the next generation soldier, because it really, fit with Tom Clancy and high tech. And Clancy was always about the latest and greatest gadgets, and even Rainbow Six had heartbeat sensors. Yeah. So, no, and, yeah, so we would have, we had, special forces, guys that would do our mocap, in Ghost Recon were special forces soldiers. I worked with both actual soldiers and with, stunt folks. We had folks that would bring in weapons. I'm a former Marine, and I was actually still in the Guard in early Ghost Recon. And we would go out. We partnered with companies. We would go out to companies' gun ranges and shoot everything and try everything out. And with Halo, moving on to Halo Reach, we didn't do as much of that. Just one, because I brought a lot of the experience to the table that I'd already siphoned a lot of that knowledge, and we want to kind of interpolate that out into the future. So it was a lot of kind of, we didn't Halo Reach wasn't about feeling like a authentic military experience. It was more grounding Halo into a authentic military experience, if that kind of makes sense. um, yeah, so it was kind of finding the vibe. So,
Still love Halo though.
oh, yeah, yeah. Well, there's a lot of nuances, like in Halo Reach. Specifically, if you look at Reach, the soldiers on the ground are UNSC Army because they're defending a planet. Whereas in the other Halos, they were Marines because they were shipboard. So Marines are on ships and Army's on the ground. And those are the kind of little details that you can find kind of scattered around, how the ranks work, things like that.
Halo, just so you know, I know I we started this as Ghost Recon focus too, but I loved Halo. I read the Halo Reach novel. I don't know what I felt about the show, but I did see those little markers there because it's like, and also the naval.
Mhm.
I played the old OG
Yep.
game, so yeah, that's it just fascinates me when like the when the art starts to mimic the reality a little bit, right? Because like we say that the games are they're an outlet. I think that they're like such a great. They're social. They bring us together. They're stress relievers. You get to explore like these fantasy worlds, because knock on wood again. I don't want to blur. Our world has changed a little bit since those things, and I don't want to glorify violence, but people always can hop into a game. When I hop into a game, I'm talking with people all around the world. We're getting along, and it seems as though these things would save more lives, right? In the event and fight crime, like you're fighting the drug lords, you're fighting people who are starting crime, like, and I don't know. This is a little bit more of a touchy subject, but I've been living overseas for 12 years, and often I don't know if you feel this way. Maybe just personally we can have this conversation. I don't know if I'll leave it in or not. I think it's a good conversation to have though. Like most of the time, get me like Americans. I'll like jump back into like gaming after this, more so. But we're seen more as like imperialists, right? Whereas we're usually stabilizers. We're usually trying to stabilize things. Like we don't seek out things. In Ghost Recon and Tom Clancy, all he writes about is counterterrorism. all these things about and I think that's important, like our shared experience, like going to like a potluck and playing Halo Reach with everyone. Everyone loves doing that, no matter who you are. And so the blend of like bringing that like the mule in Ghost Recon saves life, right? That's a good nice way here. The mule walks in front of people and saves lives and brings people what they need to survive and like blocks all the criminal guys. So maybe if you want to touch on that brief, like your thoughts on maybe anything like usually what I sorry, I was really open ended. Usually what I ask like my military service friends is like, is there anything really cool you did? Like I had a loadmaster friend who said he flew and like they had like a bunch of shit like they commandeered like tons and tons of illegal drugs and they all flew it over Japan. Like, is there any cool thing you want to share? Do you want to comment further on? I know I respect your service and thank you so much for your service. Anything on like when you brought real world people in or any like cool tech and then I guess we'll jump right into like just the question is I guess anything really cool you want to share from your career. It's always kind of cheese when people like what advice you want to give to people, right? So anything cool you want to share, comment on that, and then we'll jump into like modern developments.
Yeah, I mean, eh, games are, like you said, an outlet, right? And, art always imitates life, and people wanna, experience fantasies and, whether it's, D&D fantasy or modern military fantasy or science fiction fantasy. And I think, just like, when I was a kid and getting lost in, I got really into hard sci-fi and sci-fi military, whether it was Heinlein with Starship Troopers, Peter F. Hamilton's book series, Steakley with Armor, later with games like Battletech, like getting into military sci-fi worlds. And that kind of outlet, I think, is really healthy for people. Just because you like war movies doesn't mean you're advocating for war, and just because you enjoy watching boxing doesn't mean you want to go out and beat people up. I think it's natural that that's what people do, and I think if we can build games to bring people together, and working in gaming, from as a small kid growing up on a mountain in Alaska, I would have never had all the interactions that I've had with people from around the world, from every continent, even people that have been on Antarctica, and a lot of countries in the world that I would have. Yeah, yeah, we do. But yeah, I mean, coming from the military, I was working on military games when the United States, entered the war with Iraq, and I had friends going over. I didn't do anything exciting in the military. I was a cop in the Marine Corps. I did law enforcement stuff.
Most people don't see most people don't know that most people don't see combat in the military. There's lots of administrative. There's still ways to serve it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I did defend. My big joke is after 9/11, I was sent out to defend the Palo Verde nuclear power plant from terrorist attack, and no terrorists ever successfully attacked the Palo Verde nuclear power plant. So mission successful.
Yeah, and I got a my dad was civil engineer. He retired Navy, retired Air Force, and then he retired in '94, if you can believe that. And then I was overseas like as a Air Force brat, and knock on wood to our troops out there. But and like I know Army vets, they're just playing Destiny 2 all the time. They're having
Yeah.
fun. I know some guy who's got like 3,000 hours in Destiny 2. He plays on Twitch. He's having fun. I think he must be collecting disability or something. But it's a stress reliever, like you said, I guess that goes well. We can jump into like I think you went from like you were at Bungie. Was
Mhm.
there? I was watching the Halo documentaries of like the people would talk about like the specific game mechanics are so visceral.
Mhm.
Was there something that like so Destiny 2 comes out, but and then 343 I guess that's kind of self-explanatory. 343 Industries is like it's kind of like with Call of Duty, it started with Infinity War. So like so let's just jump into the modern stuff. I saw that you traveled to Seattle, you're helping with indie project. Is there
Mhm.
anything you're excited about? And then maybe you could plug, and then we can just go into more of like a fluid conversation. Like, what are you most excited about right now? And then do you want to talk about anything about like how Bungie employees are awesome? Or
Well, I don't have anything to plug right now, so I'm doing. So I left. I was at Epic Games for 6 years, focusing on Unreal Engine. And since then, I got hit in the great layoffs of 2023, 2024 that hit the industry. I mean, the industry's taken a major hit, 10 to 20% of the. Yeah, much worse. Yeah, yeah, but I've been helping mainly startup and indie companies. I do consulting, so I'm actually working on 4 different projects right now. None of which I can talk about what they are, but they range from mobile games to indie games to some bigger things that I, like I said, can't talk about right now. Once they get announced, I'll be excited for them. But right now in the industry, we're in a big transition phase. I'm excited about a lot of the indie titles that are out there and double A titles. I see games that have come out like Helldivers 2. Um, obviously, it's not indie, but more on the double A side when we look at like Helldivers, Baldur's Gate, things like that, where they're not what you would consider the big triple A tentpole, Christmas holiday releases, really setting standards for gameplay.
And he's also retired. He did like 4 years in the Air Force, and we love Helldivers. It's like you said,
All right.
it's like a bit of a smaller studio, but it's third person, visceral. It hit the our culture. It's like Starship Troopers, but like cool.
Yep. I mean, they made a game that catered to a demographic, and it was successful. And I think that's one of the challenges is you can make a game that is for quote unquote everybody, which mm, I hate it when people say that, like we're going to make a game for everybody. Well, everybody doesn't have a, a gaming device, right? Everybody in the world can't access your game. So you're already limiting your audience just by making a computer game or a mobile game or a console game. You're already limiting your audience. So just acknowledge that you're doing that, identify the audience that you're going after, and go hard after them. Right. If you're making a Pokemon game, then make the best Pokemon game ever. Don't try to make a Pokemon game that's going to appeal to me because I don't even know what Pokemon is. Besides a collectible game that my son plays.
Correct me if I'm wrong there. You mentioned the industry is changing so much, and I think Fortnite definitely was like as much as it caught that cultural mainstream zeitgeist. But correct me if I'm wrong. Like it started as Save the World tower defense, and
Yeah.
the advertisement started as like because my family loves it. I have the nephew, and I don't want to dox them, but they love it. I just don't hop into it as much as they do, obviously. But like I was be playing PUBG like after I was really into like
Mhm.
PUBG,
Yeah.
like Overwatch, and then uh I competed briefly PUBG at DreamHack. I almost didn't think I'd like it because I was really into the Daisy standalone mod era, and I'll recommend you maybe someone else to on your interview circuit if you have time later. There's a guy who's even better at interviewing than me. He's slash Soma on Twitter. But I would anyways.
Yeah.
That
Introduce me.
like the Daisy standalone community was huge that led to the battle royale genre. But correct me if I'm wrong. That was another like we're going through like the LLM moment right now. I feel, but there was that moment like 5G towers were coming out, and the Epic Games. I think they wanted to capture like cross-platform. They wanted to capture like 5G, not just people. And then so I feel like you experienced that, and then now I feel like it's like a saturation a little bit where it's like I don't know if you've seen this. There's this company I might I'm currently in a second stage with them. I don't know if I'll have a full-time role with them yet, but maybe it could be a start of a cool partnership. It's called Run Pod. It'd be nice to get more involved with them either professionally or just as a consumer and just like a creator. But it's called runpod.io, and the technology is like this web-based games, right? But people are making the like Elon shared it, RONPOD, and this guy on Twitter, Levels.io, he had an interview with Lex Friedman. They're using like the old modding community that had like XML files, right? But they're making games in like less than a day. But they look a little bit more like Doom. Like they don't look in like like a little not like quite Quake, but like, what do you think about that in a world where tools are changing? I know you have clients you can't talk about, but like, are you more? I guess we can kind of end it here and then just have like more of a water cooler conversation. Are you excited about like AR, VR? There's still no killer app there. Or I love my monitor and computer gaming. I love mobile gaming, don't get me wrong, but like what do you think is next in like the world of entertainment and games?
That's a big question, right? That's a huge question. Um, Yeah, no, new technologies are always exciting, and they're also a challenge, right? Like, when to earlier questions, back in the day, it was if you wanted to make computer art, you got Max or you got Maya, and you picked one, and you got really good at it, and then hopefully the studio that you wanted to work at used the use the format that you were good at. Otherwise, you had to start all the way over, right? And these days you do have exciting tools. I mean, even in if you look at Unreal Engine, base vanilla Unreal Engine, as it is today, compared even what it was in Unreal 3, when I went ran my own studio and I was independent, if the tool set for Unreal 5 had been available for Unreal 3, I'd still be running my own company because I wouldn't have had the struggles to, develop pipelines that I had to build for Unreal 3 that are now just built into Unreal 5. No,
Like
well,
Cliffy B, I
it was
think that
it was both. It was the cost. It was the cost associated with it and the upfront cost. Um, uh, and it was just that the pipelines Unreal 3 was not designed to be a broadly released software package, right? Like Unreal 5 is. Unreal 5 is designed that anybody can download it and start using it. Unity is designed that way today. Neither of those applications were designed for that pipeline back then. And so when you wanted to do something like, for example, something that you would think is very easy. I was working on a tactical game and and in multiplayer, I wanted the dead bodies to not disappear because I didn't want dead bodies disappearing. Well, Unreal Engine 3 by default, it does garbage collection and says, "Oh, that AI is dead. Nobody's looking there. Stop rendering that." Yeah, so we had to build a pipeline to override Unreal 3's behavior and build our own pipeline to try to override that. And so these days that would take you 10 minutes. Those days that was an engineer 6 weeks of work, and I had to pay that engineer full-time salary for that 6 weeks of work. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, big tech and AI and tools and cloud gaming and different AR, VR, mixed classes. All of these things are going to radically change. One of the things I say a lot is the one standard with the game industry is that that every 2 years it will be almost completely different than it was 2 years ago. Yeah, I mean there's been no, there's all sorts of tech out there. I mean, I would say it almost goes the other way, where I think the government is constantly trying to catch up to the commercial enterprises. Having been on some interesting tech calls when I was at Epic. Working with you know different organizations and governments and things like that. There are some really neat tech out there that where I think you have a lot of entrepreneurs that do really cool tech stuff, but then it drifts around a lot as people either try to find what problem that tech is trying to solve or to make that tech actual function in a real environment. Like it's one thing to make a headset that interfaces with a sensor that allows you to see through walls. It's another thing to make that same technology that can hold up to a soldier dragging it through the jungle imagine a Cambodian jungle with the humidity trying to keep those electronics functioning, the practicality of making it work, right?
I would read about how the army has this new system like it flips down. They can see which
Yep.
was so cool. Like in Ghost Recon, like you go like this, you go your guys are all around you, and you're going through. And there's drone, but it's just so fascinating the technology behind that. And then I guess just like as far as with modern developments with like the way the prompts are changing everything, Grok and GP. I mean, we kind of touched on that. You said that you can't talk about what you're working on, but like, are you like what are you most excited about? Like, are you like your hot like do you have any cool hobbies you want to share? Anything else you want to plug before we say bye? Because it was so nice talking to you. I feel like we're on the same wavelength a little bit, and I'm gonna reshare this. I'm gonna edit it nicely together. I'll put some B-roll. um I'm so curious of like I guess there's only so much you can ask like the army natick department. Oh, there's probably some guys like, I don't really want to talk to you, right? I got other stuff to do. I get lunch at the food court.
Yeah. I do have one kind of story to go out on. I mean, as far as hobbies, I mean, I do historical like reenactment kind of shooting type things. I play video games, I play board games, I camp. I like outdoorsy stuff. I kind of mix between a nerd and a former Marine, really. But one of the neat things that disappeared, and I honestly don't know what happened to it, but I was on the FN Proving Grounds for Brique National, and we were checking it, like shooting P90s and cool M3 recoil absorbing machine gun mounts for a Mod Deuce that fired at like 2,000 rounds a minute. But they had this high velocity 40 millimeter direct fire grenade launcher with the range setting, the proximity range setting. And it was a high velocity launcher compared to the standard 40 mic. No, this was a direct fire 40 millimeter high velocity grenade launcher. So imagine basically a sniper rifle that fired 40 millimeter explosive grenades, but not in like the blooper type low velocity. This
I've ever played Siphon Filter. You just brought back like a memory. There was like an M70 grenade. Like, you ever
Yeah, yeah, it was like this, except it was like a sniper rifle. It was pretty crazy.
Wow.
And we got to shoot it once, and then I never saw this thing ever again. I've never seen pictures of it. I've never seen it on the internet. I don't know what happened to it. So maybe someone out there can let me know what happened to that thing. It was really cool.
I guess if no one stops us, we would like. I don't want to take up too much of your day, but we could talk about like that sort of fancy tech and conspiracy theories and other things all day. Maybe
Oh yeah,
maybe in like a couple months we might have to do another one of these, like
yeah.
number two Christian Allen round two interview like Lex Friedman does. But I'm so fascinated about talking to those subjects though, because it's like something that they don't want you to see. We all want to know what it is. Like we think about all these things we're hearing, like advanced gravitational systems, or like I don't know if you've heard some of these things, like the brown note, like a supersonic, like they microwave, like they can make you poop from far away. They can make like you could a chocolate bar is if I ate a Nestle chocolate bar, I guess like it melts faster in my stomach and I stand in the other direction. Or like I've like these tear gas drones. Have you heard about this one? I think it was called the Panama sickness or what, Cuban.
I have heard the like sound weapons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't like,
yeah.
but it's apparently if they put it in a build is it's the device is powered off the way the building is moving, and and then it's like I guess if you don't want someone in a building, you can disturb them by and then tell them to get out of the building in some weird
I would
way.
not be surprised. I would not be
Yeah,
surprised.
that's interesting. I guess that that could do like it's a siphon. It was in siphon filter, I think. M70 grenade, like Metal Gear Solid type stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I just went on a ramble there.
But as far as things to plug, actually, folks can find me I'm still active on Twitter at Cerealin. I do have a Blue Sky account if people want to talk to me there. I don't use it too much, but you can hit me up there at Cerealin. I'm at Cerealin pretty much everywhere. One thing I have been thinking about, if people would be interested, I've been really interested in doing a a series on practical zombie engagements. I think as a species, we need to conquer the zombie threat. I really
Let me know. I'd be happy to hop in on.
I don't know. Well, I really think it's important to get the word out that people have been duped by Hollywood and TV and Max Brooks. That they should be using machetes and weapons with no sights on them, like in Walking Dead. And I think having a game design built system for properly evaluating man portable weapons against the zombie threat It's something that we should take seriously.
Yeah, it might actually save lives by
There
helping
you go.
protect against the zombie threat that we might be laughing about now, but never. It's have you ever seen this guy? Have you seen this guy Tim Kennedy yet? He's making the rounds. Tim Kennedy. He's a special. I think he's a special. He was on Rogan. He has a channel, and then he has this thing called sheepdog response, where
Okay.
he flies people out. And it looks like it's like $400 to $800 and gives like civilians battle training. It's pretty cool and like nice things to know training. It's called Sheepdog Response. When you mentioned that, I thought of that because I got his shirt. It says Zombie Task Force on it, and it's like him.
There you
It's
go.
like he's got like his